Today's topic is named Starting Before You're Ready, Alive and Floundering, which I know Fiona will give a bit more meaning towards that one. But Starting Before You're Ready is, we think, a topic that really has resonated with people. And it would be really interesting to get you all involved in the discussion after this pair have given their presentation. That will be our format for this evening. We'll have presentation from Fiona and Molly, and then we would really love for you to get involved. I will try not to hog the time up, though I have my own questions for Fiona and Molly. Really recommend you to be adding some questions to the chat throughout. And of course, we'd love for you to come off mute and um, actually get into the conversation and ask you questions live as well if you're comfortable with that. Without further ado, I will pass straight over to Fiona and Molly to get started.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for taking the time to spend some time with us this evening to hear about our journey and how we've turned an idea into reality. Molly's a bit unwell tonight, so she's going to be helping me with notes rather than speaking so much. Yeah, very much here as well in our videos and in our story. So before we start, I'd just like to acknowledge the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people where we're joining you from tonight. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and acknowledge any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people here tonight. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Just going to share our screen. Molly is very much helping me with the tech in the background here. So this is Molly and I'm Fiona. We are social entrepreneurs and we design fun connection games that help people to feel like they belong. We've been doing this since Molly was 6, and as you can see from the picture, she's a bit taller now. She turns 13 next week. So first we're going to show you how we're helping people to connect and feel like they belong. Then I'm going to explain our founder's story over the last 6 years, and then we'll launch our new game called Up to Us. So before we show you our first video, I wanted to explain how our game works. So this is our first game, also called You Shape Us. So there's 4 piles of prompt cards, an invention challenge, a person, a place, and a thing. So the idea is that you flip over a card from each pile and then you use those cards as prompts to brainstorm connection ideas. Then you draw your idea and you share your idea with the other players, and you ask, what do you like about my idea? How can we make it better? And how can we bring it to life? So here's a short video of how it's being played at Gordon Primary School, which is Molly's old school.
1 in 3 kids feel like they don't belong at school. I was one of them. When I was 6, I felt too shy to make friends. This made me really stressed and anxious, and I dreaded going to school most mornings. Sometimes, Mum and I sat in the car park because I was too upset to go inside. Sometimes, I couldn't even leave the house.
When Molly was having a hard time going to school, we created a game at home to help her think of new ways to make friends. And one of the ideas that she came up with was taking an elastic to school. And so she took the elastic and invited other kids to play with her. Other kids joined in and then started bringing their own elastics, and then the school brought elastics as well. So that moment made me wonder whether we had something that might be able to help other kids too. And so our game called You Shape Us is now being played in family homes, in community programs, and in schools.
It's been a low-cost resource that has enabled our specialist wellbeing teacher to work across different year levels, enabling the students to work on ways that they can work together to build new relationships with future friends. And it's been really popular, particularly within our senior grades.
I'll be honest with you, when I was first asked whether I would trial the game, I'm a naturally curious person, so I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a go, but I didn't really appreciate what would come from it. And so when I first started to play this game with the children, I was thrilled that they clearly enjoyed it and loved it. And when they got into it, they would get even more and more creative, and they were coming up with all these outlandish things. One of the questions that is asked at the end is, how can we bring this game to life? And then I saw kids, like the light sort of went on. I was like, oh yeah, that was a really cool idea. I love how you did that. We could do that at lunchtime. And sometimes I would intentionally play the game leading up to a break in the day, so that then gave them the opportunity to sort of run with their ideas and take it out into the playground. And I actually saw that happen on a number of occasions with kids who would say to me, to their other mates, oh no, I don't want to play footy today. I know I always play footy. We're going to work on this, and we're going to take this outside, and we're going to keep going with that. And that happened on several occasions where, and I'm like, wow, that I didn't expect that would be the case.
If you're a shy person like I was time ago, this game can really help you because it gets everything inside of you, all your doubts, enjoyment, everything, onto either your whiteboard, a piece of paper, or anything you like. So then you can make new friends and share yourself to others.
They could turn out to be their next best friend, but they don't know that because they've never spent the time to get together and to connect over, a game such as this, which helps them to talk about their feelings and their thoughts and their emotions and what they like and dislike and so on. So, it could be something that after school care could use, or before school care, even clubs and things at lunchtimes and recesses at schools. They could certainly, there's no reason you couldn't have a You Shape Us club. There was a group of boys that were talking about their shared love of football. Their football passions were 3 different codes. One was mad on rugby league, one was mad on Aussie rules, and the other one was mad on soccer. And they went out and created their own hybrid game of those 3 games brought together. And then they came back and told me about it the following week. They went and did it on their weekend and played it in their own street. And then they got other kids in their street to come and join in the game as well. So, that to me, that came out of playing a card game. Like, that's awesome. It was such an obvious example of how this game can have reach beyond a set lesson in class. It can be taken beyond that. And that's one of the things I love about it.
Children should just focus on being children, not if they belong. We need your help to make sure every child feels like they belong, so we can just enjoy being children. Bring our game to your school or community. The school becomes a place where kids are excited to go, not just expected to be, because you shape us.
Okay, so our social enterprise called You Shape Us is on a mission to nurture belonging through creativity. So children's sense of belonging is the extent to which they feel personally accepted, respected, included and supported, and for students in their school environment. And as you heard, 1 in 3 kids don't feel like they don't belong. Research shows that belonging is shaped by more than 40 factors, grouped under 4 areas here: personal characteristics, their interactions with others, their environment, and broader society. There's a reference down there which you can find on our blog, and that is a meta-analysis of all of the factors that impact belonging. But we just focus on a few. So the things that we're trying to impact with our game are social skills, their relatedness, so how they feel accepted by others in terms of their internal feelings, and their self-esteem. We're also trying to influence their interactions, particularly their peer acceptance, and we're intentionally trying to build something called mind perception, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We're also trying to influence their interactions with families, so that's why we sell more broadly to the community, and also influence the interactions between students and teachers. Ultimately, the one thing that we're trying to influence in their environment is the factor around that's known to shape kids' sense of belonging, which is extracurricular activities. So, for example, lunchtime clubs that are designed by kids for kids. So this is a bit of a snapshot of our impact framework and how we are trying to nurture people's belonging through creativity. So we do that through all of our games, or both of our games, I should say, which help people of all ages to imagine, share, and create their ideas. As I said, we're also aiming for those ideas to be embedded in their communities. For example, regular meetups, a new tradition, or a lunchtime club at school where students create activities for other students. So each stage creates its own ripple effect of belonging. When ideas are generated, they grow skills and confidence of the person who came up with them. When the ideas are shared, created and embedded, they strengthen connection between the people making them, but also the people who are experiencing those connection ideas. So now I want to take you through the highs and lows of our founders' journey over the last
No.
Sorry, you might want to pop yourself on mute. Just bit of background noise there. And I just wanted to give you a heads up that I do touch briefly on mental health issues here because it's an important part of our journey. So as a kid in the 70s and 80s, I grew up here in Hambley Place in Queanbeyan. It was a cul-de-sac with 16 other kids, and we had non-stop street games like handball, marbles, and street cricket. We had the freedom to explore until the street lights came on. And this is what gave me an early sense of belonging to my community. I've worked in community services for over 33 years in policy and programs, 25 of those in the ACT government and the last decade in the community sector. I started my career in public housing, in debt recovery, which meant evicting people. I was terrible at it. It was a really bad job. I wanted to stop homelessness, not contribute to it. And I had the good fortune to move into a homelessness study at ATCOS, which is our local peak justice social justice body. So there I learned about the systemic causes of homelessness, and we did work that resulted in major investment in homelessness prevention by the incoming government. In my work across housing, homelessness, child welfare and disability, I've sat with people whose lives have been shaped by exclusion. I've seen how public attitudes shape who we feel compassion for and who we turn away, and who we see as part of us and who we see and who gets pushed into the them category. And I've seen how stereotypes can lead to real harm for people who are already marginalised. Sadly, it's something we're seeing today. And against that sense of systemic powerlessness, I discovered and fell in love with asset-based community development, which is about starting with the strengths and ideas already in a community and building from there. So about 20 years ago, Jim Deers, who's a former director of neighbourhoods for the city of Seattle, came to Canberra. He told us about stories of neighbours creating change from the ground up, like in Fremont, Seattle, where locals built a giant troll sculpture to address a safety problem under a bridge, which now attracts festivals and international visitors. Or Waterloo in Ontario, where people host annual porch parties that bring neighbours together. Or in Toppenish, Washington, where kids designed and built a straw bale dragon for their local park. Those stories showed me that change doesn't come from doing things for people, it comes from empowering people to connect, create, and include each other. So in 2019, we began thinking about You Shape Us. One day at work, I met Michael Cronin, who I see is here tonight, who is a local social entrepreneur who used his skills in chemistry to make soap to fund health and hygiene projects in Central Australia. I thought that was brilliant, that you could create something for yourself and make a real difference completely outside of your paid job. So later that evening, I knew that I wanted to be a social entrepreneur, and I knew deeply that my dream was to pass on my creativity to the next generation. Just no idea how I would do that. Not long after, Molly and I came up with the idea for our first game, At the time, I'd been reading a lot about non-linear creativity, which is basically about using your intuition and random prompts to jump to new ideas instead of following a neat, logical step-by-step path. At first, our game was just a fun way to solve everyday problems. Then we used it to brainstorm ways for Molly to make friends at school. And as you could hear from the video, when she took it to school, that day she made 3 new friends, and then she met new friends through those people. I took the idea to a local business support service. They absolutely hated it and didn't see any value in it at all. But the next day, I met with Dr. Cindy Mitchell at the Millhouse Ventures, which supports social enterprise here in Canberra. I showed her our homemade game on scrappy bits of paper and some ideas that Molly had drawn. She could see the potential, and she also asked this crucial question, which was, how could it foster empathy? The very next day, the Christchurch mosque tragedy happened. Like many, I was and still am deeply concerned about the rising forces of hate and division, and I wanted to understand how our game might be able to counter that, even in the smallest way. How could it create empathy and connection instead of division? I began reading works like The Opposite of Hate and others you can read on our blog. I learned about us versus them thinking and how that can be countered by fostering spaces for connection. I also explored research on creativity and empathy and how they can strengthen each other, but how too much empathy can actually diminish our ability to create. And that's when I saw our game differently, not just as a fun, creative party game, but a serious game with a social purpose, as a way to foster spaces where people can see and hear each other's ideas, learn about their inner worlds and our shared humanity. Perhaps also it could be of value to those weighed down by empathetic distress, helping them to find the spark to create. So a few weeks later, I pitched our idea to a room of business and academic mentors connected to the Millhouse Ventures. Afterwards, I spoke to each person about their feedback and suggestions. And that was really the defining moment for me when I realised we had something of value to offer. I could actually see myself becoming a social entrepreneur. I was accepted into the 2019 GRIST program, a social enterprise design course. And not long after that, life threw a major challenge I didn't see coming, and everything stopped. One day, I suddenly felt the forces of hate had come looking for me through my phone and outside our home. After a stressful incident and bad reaction to medication, I went through a month-long episode of psychosis. It left me completely disconnected from myself, from Molly, and from life as I knew it. It was my turn to understand what real disempowerment felt like, and that is why I care so deeply now about making sure other people have a voice. When I come out of hospital, my mind was dead quiet and my creative spark was gone. I couldn't work, so I quit my job, and with that went my income, my identity, and my confidence. I joined an art class to give myself some gentle and unpressured things to do and a way to meet others. And slowly, the little creative sparks began to return in my mind. The first piece I created was a collage, and that would later become our box art for our first game. It's based on a family story from 1862, which I'll tell you a bit more about later. So what started out as an awful situation ended up giving me the freedom to finally chase and study my long-time love for community development. While studying community development, our teacher invited us to share project ideas. I stood up shakily and explained our game idea. 4 classmates joined me. I couldn't believe it. Together, we spoke with children, parents, grandparents, and child professionals and asked about what they wanted adults and kids to do to help kids feel like they belong more. We play tested the game at Molly's After School Care and Families at Stripey Sunday in Gungahlin over 3 weekends. Each session showed us what worked and what didn't, and we refined the game every time. By the end, You Shape Us had grown from a simple idea into a genuine community development tool. Then, for nearly 2 years, it sat on a shelf. I was full of self-doubt. I convinced myself it was silly and maybe even delusional, maybe something better left behind. But it kept following me. It kept me going, remembering the feedback from the time I pitched it to the Millhouse mentors, and I thought about it every day. Then, out of the blue, I had a coffee with a friend I hadn't seen in 20 years, Vincent. He has a brilliant strategic mind and immediately saw the greater potential in what I was doing. He introduced me to a process called the ACT Matrix, which is a really simple but powerful tool that helps you to take positive action towards the things that you care about while identifying the specific negative self-beliefs that might be holding you back. As part of it, I made this collage to remind me what I cared about, how I was going to get there, and how I wanted to feel at the end. It became my daily roadmap. Looking back now, I'll skip that bit. The process was transformative, and I'd recommend it to anybody who feels stuck with their ideas. It helped me firmly back on a path of progress. From there, we kept playtesting, having conversations and refining both our games with a social enterprise, with support from the Canberra Innovation Network Idea to Impact program, and also the Start Some Good Hustle program. All that work slowly gathered momentum until we were ready to put ourselves to the ultimate test, crowdfunding the first 100 copies of our game. In October 2023, we crowdfunded basically just to cover the printing costs of the first 100 copies of our game through pre-sales. You think that after all this time I'd be excited, but the truth is you never really know if your product will succeed until launch day. People might like it, but will they actually pay for it? I'd also made a deal with myself. If I didn't hit our target, it was going to be time to let things go and to move on to the next thing. Even though I thought I was prepared, the overwhelm hit hard. A few hours in, we hadn't made a single sale. I spent most of the day in bed taking what I call stress naps. That evening, I got out of bed and checked again, and we'd made sales and donations, $222, our lucky number. So it was a sign from the universe that this dream wasn't over yet. We started selling just in time for Christmas. We were alive and floundering. I had no idea about selling, marketing, evaluating, anything that goes with running a business, really. And look, we've had good days at Marcus, and we've had days where we've gone to things and not a single game has sold. But now our game is being played in 4 Canberra schools, mainly 3 primary schools and 1 high school. We're stocked in 2 retailers, Jolt Games and Waniasa Markets, and we're being used in community development programs as well. Our games have travelled across Australia, New Zealand and the US. It's not what you would call a roaring commercial success, but I'm not about to quit my day job. But it is making a real impact for people who play it. They feel more connected, they use their imagination, and best of all, they're making new friends. So for us, success might look modest on the outside, but deeply meaningful on the inside. In April last year, we teamed up with the wonderful Anna Howe, Community Development Officer Extraordinaire at Woden Community Services and Suburban Land Agency, their Mingle program. So together we invited Whitlam residents to play a customised version of our game, U-Shape Whitlam, featuring local landmarks and community resources from their new suburb. Neighbours as young as 4 came together to imagine and invent connection ideas, then bring them to life. I'm just going to show you a short video now so you can see and hear what it feels like when people create their own connection ideas and others join them in those ideas. One of the wonderful things that happened last year was we were awarded an ACT Social Enterprise Grant. This funding allowed us to bring in some incredible expertise to strengthen our work. We engaged Tony Cox from Wellbeing Education Solutions to help redesign our next game, our original game, but our next print run, and making sure that the game strengthens kids' sense of belonging both during and after play, and also to develop our impact evaluation framework. If you know any teachers or facilitators who might like to use our game, there's a bunch of free facilitation resources that we've developed with Tony's support, including mapping of the curriculum, and we've got training videos there about fostering belonging with You Shape Us and really deepening that children's sense of connection. And we've also got an animated explainer that teachers can show, like on a whiteboard, to explain the game to kids. So we really wanted something to make it as easy as possible for teachers to use and for group facilitators to use in their programs as well. We also worked with the wonderful Hannah Russell and Michael Shasky from Grow Up in Sydney to create a marketing strategy. And they've given us so many detailed strategy in both digital and non-digital areas. You can see some of their advice starting to come through in our pictures. We've refreshed our website. We've established an Instagram page. And yeah, so much of what they've done, we're starting to implement, and it's probably going to take us another good 12 months to get through it all. And the other thing that I did was to engage two wonderful women. Nimity Zappert, who works with Authentic Selling, and she is a sales trainer in business-to-business sales, and Misty Henkel, who does business-to-consumer sales. So I've just learned so much from these wonderful women, and all of their advice is what's gotten us over the line in terms of talking with schools and talking to retailers as well. So one of the things one of the wonderful things I learned was about approaching retailers and selling wholesale. And look, we've had our fair share of rejections and no responses, but guess what? Now we're in our first game shop. So I'll just show you this very quickly. Oh, sugar. That's not what I wanted. Okay.
Dearest daydreamers, I've arrived on the shelves of jolt games, but do hurry, or you'll be left playing ordinary games. How ghastly.
Also, I finally reached out to Millhouse again and graduated from their GRIST program, this time in 2024. I learned so much about building and communicating our impact, including making digital stories. So now I can confidently say we are social entrepreneurs, and that voice of doubt still pops up at least 3 times a day, but I've learned is just part of the journey. It keeps me grounded and reminds me to tread ethically. The difference is now I don't let it stop me. We're alive, we're learning, and we're moving forward, floundering at times, but always with purpose. And so tonight we're going to launch our new game called Up to Us. So we've been working on this idea for about 2 years, and almost exactly 2 years to the day I had coffee with Dr. Hugh Mackay to talk about You Shape Us. For those that don't know Dr. Mackay, he is a leading social researcher and has written many books about connecting in the face of disconnection. He encouraged us to think about how we might reduce social isolation among older adults. He talked about older people who were in aged care who never had visitors in 3 years. And so he put us onto a woman by the name of Samantha Heron in Sydney and her wonderful program called the Seniors and Teen Empathy Program. Sam tested her game, our first game in her program, and we changed the game based on their feedback. One thing they suggested was having bigger cards. And so we thought one day, if we ever had enough money, we'll do that. when we were selling our first game at the markets, we also had lots of people come and talk to us about what we were doing. When we heard about we were trying to help people feel like they belong more, many older people told us about how they were feeling isolated and how their family members were feeling alone. Many people said our game would be good for older people, especially to play with their grandkids. One older lady said it would be really great for older people because they have wonderful imaginations, you know. So we knew that we had to do something. One day we had the chance to bring our dream to life. So start some good. We're offering a year-long program for female founders thanks to the June Canavan Foundation and who back ideas that make a lasting difference. So I met with Katie and Tom every month for a year, working on ways to grow our enterprise idea. And at the end, we pitched our new game idea to the foundation, and we were so excited to get a loan to be able to support our first print run. In terms of the design, when Molly was playing our first game with my mum and dad, the photos on the cards had us talking for ages about how Poppy played marbles at school and Nan played elastics. And for me, that was something I played and loved, both of those things at school. So we kept the first part of our game that we love the most, coming up with ideas, sharing them and creating them together. This time, it's for everybody, aged 5 to 105, with bigger cards, simpler rules and prompts that worked for older players too. But the heart of it stays the same, helping people to create their own ways to connect. So the idea of our new game is you choose a memory card, which you can see there in the photo prompts. Then you share a memory with other players. Then you select an invention challenge and you come up with a connection idea based on the memory and the invention card. So for example, some of the ideas we heard in testing were a knitting group with music from the 80s, a social picnic with playing backyard cricket, and a minibus photography tour. So over 4 months, we tested it with 32 new people in families between parents, grandparents and grandkids, older people in 3 seniors groups hosted by Woden Community Services, and also talked to aged care staff at LDK, which is a seniors living program here, when we also talked to community development staff. And we changed the game based on their feedback. And some of the things that you can see here that people are really enjoying is listening to their grandsons and grandparents' ideas, sharing happy and interesting memories, just learning more about the person and just how interesting people are who they already know, listening to stories. And they also love that each game is totally different. So here's the story about our artwork. So my 4th great-grandmother, Christina McIntosh, was a servant for the Campbells at Duntroon here in Canberra. In 1862, a newspaper reported that she caught a Murrumbidgee cod the size of a 2-year-old in the Queanbeyan River and carried it home alive, floundering in her arms. If you've ever tried to carry a wriggly 2-year-old to the car, let alone a slippery one, for miles, you know the sheer determination that takes. I just love the absurdity of the situation and her refusal to give up. Absurdity is at the heart of our game. When we're not afraid to be ridiculous, we unlock the most creative ideas, and those ideas can connect people in ways that nothing else can. So let's help our communities, especially our youngest members, to bring their slippery, floundering ideas to life, because those ideas can unite neighbours, spark friendships, and help people to find their place. And that's how we create belonging, through creativity.
I'll try.
Okay, Mol's going to have a go.
Can I just say the first sentence?
Yeah, sure.
Like this
Yeah,
part?
yep.
So I'm a bit croaky, but this is a photo of me and my good friend Sophie, which she's here tonight, I think, yeah, if she's still here. I met her 6 years ago. She was friends with one of the kids I asked to play elastics with. Even though she moved away a little while ago and lives 5 hours apart, she's one of my closest friends. Our game can help you make friends and it can help you show you who you are. It can help you hear what's inside other people, their stories, their dreams, their ideas. Mum and I made these games so that your families, your students, and the people you work with can share and create your own connection ideas. Yeah, do you want me to keep going? Okay. We want you to find your own Sophies, the kind of friendship that makes you feel like you truly belong. And we want you to feel closer to the people you already know. Start with our game, but don't stop there. And always remember, you shape us.
Thank you, everyone. Gonna stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Sorry, I've got a heater in front of me that was very noisy. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. You couldn't see, I'm sure everyone else was also smiling along, and that was full of so many beautiful moments, and it really shows the highs and lows, and how you've persevered. So thank you so much for sharing such personal information on that and both of your stories. I love that, just that final sentiment of, finding your Sophie, finding your, who knows how a game or an interaction like this can really turn into a lifelong friendship. So that's really great. Thank you so much. Please, everyone, if you have questions for Fiona and Molly, please chuck them in the chat, and we can get to those. I will kick us off just to get us started, but please do add those questions to the chat. We've got plenty of times to go through those. But my first question really, Fiona and Molly, is what has it been like being a mother-daughter power duo? How's that journey been working together on this social enterprise?
Yeah, I can start. I think it's been like really like a life-changing kind of experience, like working together. And I think that it would be definitely a very different experience if it was just mum or if it was just me, which that would probably be impossible. But I think it's really great just because we get to spend a lot more time together than like really anyone else. So yeah, I think that's probably like the best part is really just spending time together and like coming up with really cool ideas. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's I knew like I'm a solo mum and we're a very small family. And so I knew from the beginning that this is going to take time and it had to benefit Molly in ways in both, kind of her connections with other people, but also, it's been a really great opportunity for her to develop skills in Canva and animation and spreadsheets, and she does the finances and she loves speech making. And yeah, I feel like that's the beauty of like micro enterprise or social enterprise as a family, is that you can kind of help your kids explore their interests and yeah, develop kind of new ways of new skills. And I mean, I would say probably it possibly eats into a lot of our other like family time where non-U shape us time at times, doesn't it? It's quite intense, but yeah, overall it's been a positive. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I do second that. I think, Molly, there's not many 13-year-olds who can already tick off being a co-founder and going through these experiences. So I think that's super impressive. But yeah, it's fantastic to see how you guys have worked together. It would be tricky to navigate both sides of that. But really great to see it's working out so well. The first question that's come through the chat, thank you, Ryan, for that. Firstly, lots of praise is coming through the chats too. Just want that written into the included in the recording. Everyone's a big fan. But Ryan has come through and asked if you've considered taking this or similar concepts into an adults only scenario. Much has been talked about people feeling isolated, especially men. I wonder if running this for adults, like as a team building exercise or similar, would be another avenue to pursue.
Yeah, definitely. Like when we've kind of from the beginning when we designed it, we have actually tested it amongst my nerdy adult friends who are kind of into gaming, and so a lot of their kind of feedback about the mechanism and that sort of thing has been really useful. I think it's and often, actually, a couple of people have bought the game for the purpose of it being a team building, kind of game. And also, I guess even though our social enterprise is focused on the needs of children specifically, so that's really where we've been focusing sales, and obviously now with older adults, it is, I guess at its core an older and all ages game. But thank you so much for your encouragement there, because that's definitely something we've been thinking about. Well, particularly the team building stuff is like, how do we, kind of broach that? So would love to kind of connect if you're interested in terms of any ideas that you might on how we do that.
Yeah, and Ryan's also brought up another point too, which I don't know if you have any other thoughts or if it really rounds off that discussion, but the point that it may need more facilitation for adults only, which, we would think it would need to be more perhaps for kids, but I think there's a certain level of curiosity in kids that we unfortunately leave once we grow up a little bit.
Yeah. So a couple of things kind of comes to mind is it's really interesting watching people like most adults who sit down and do it. They're like, oh, I'm not creative. But then they come up with these really cool creative ideas. Whereas kids don't have that. Like they just do it, don't they? It's quite an interesting thing to watch. And I don't know what it is. I think people become very self-conscious of kind of sharing their ideas, which is such a great shame. That people aren't, feeling safe necessarily. And so part of our game is really about setting a safe space, which we kind of outline on a welcome card in terms of like, people can opt out. We don't encourage use of timers. And also, you can use like 1 or 2 cards instead of 4 cards so that it's not too complex, and very much about, it's okay to pass and just be in the conversation. And in terms of the facilitation, so with the teacher resources that we have online, we do have some tips there around that Tony, in terms of, I should have mentioned as well, Tony's got a whole year of experience in implementing U-Shape Us in his wellbeing classes from years 1 to 6. And so he's got some really great facilitation tips. And we've also designed the cards so that each person kind of has a how to play card. So it doesn't rely on a facilitator, but kind of having a facilitator, particularly in those community development settings, has been quite useful in, kind of helping people to take their ideas to the next stage of creating them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Question also from Michael is around your impact measurement. What sort of metrics do you have to measure what impact you're having?
Yeah, definitely. So we look at those ideas generated, ideas shared, ideas created, and ideas embedded, which we haven't achieved yet, that 4th one, and also mindset change. So we have used surveys when we've been playtesting, and so the things that we look at there is around their creative confidence. We look at, whether they felt comfortable to share their idea, whether they are interested in creating their idea, and just really then, at the end of those sessions, we've been asking people, how they felt about the experience and how it made them feel, and whether ultimately whether kids are feeling more connected, which they're doing that.
It's amazing. It'd be so interesting to have a further down the line check-in, like Molly, like how you've come up with friends, like almost going like 5 years down the track, hey, you remember that game you played? Did it, what resulted from it?
And one of the tricky things I think too is when you've got a social enterprise that's about a product as opposed to a service, it's quite hard to get the measurement. Like things can be happening, but because the product has left your hands, and it might have been sold through a shop, so you might not know who's kind of gotten it. But even the people who you do know, teachers, for example, are very busy. It's very difficult to find out information necessarily about how things are going once it's left your hands. Whereas I guess if you're running a service, obviously it's much easier to kind of gauge. So it's definitely an area that we're trying to work out ways of getting more, kind of feedback.
Great. And now we have a question here from Sada, asking if you've thought about creating games in languages other than English, which I understand would be perhaps a resourcing challenge.
Yeah.
But Sada, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or did you have a particular scenario in your brain thinking about the question? Oh, you've gone on mute, sorry.
Am I off mute now?
Yes, that's better.
Hi. Sorry about that. Just an amazing concept and fantastic. And in terms of belonging, I'm very aware that sometimes people from different language groups have a harder time fitting in. And even with older people that, there's been discussion in communities, there's Older Women's Network. If people sometimes lose English if they've learned it as a second language, but they can converse in their first language. But I think the games are so rich that you've created. I just think so good. Share it with other people. Share it in other languages.
Thank you so much. And we did actually test that the second time. So we've did our 2 days with U-Shape Whitlam, and the second time we translated all of the materials into Hindi. And so a lot of the folk in that community are speak Hindi or Punjabi. And so, yeah, we tried that. Kind of tested that, like put our toe in the water, so to speak. But definitely there was... it really helped that connection between grandparents who didn't speak English and children who were part of that as well. But thank you for that encouragement. We'll definitely look at expanding that. Thank you.
Fantastic. And thanks, Sada, for that extra insight coming up live. I had a question here from Michael, and I believe the conversation has evolved in the chat too. But Michael's asked if you've gone down an IP or trademark route to protect the games. Ryan has come back and said that game mechanics are not patentable, but you can only copyright the artwork and copyright written material. I guess you're nodding, meaning yes, you've already investigated.
Yeah, had a look at it. And I had a person who worked in IP who said that really, like, there's two things to kind of consider. Do you have the resources to contest it if somebody did copy it? And secondly, the other thing is if you have a product where people can see inside it, like it's not like software where you can't really kind of see, the secret ingredients, where it's very evident what it is, like it is easy for people to copy. And look, unless if somebody set up something that had exactly our branding and our artwork and everything like that, I'd actually be quite flattered if people used the mechanism in some way. Like if more people are out there creating connection, then that's a good thing, right? In the right hands.
No, absolutely. I think that definitely speaks to your motivations for this game. You said earlier you have no intention of quitting your day job, but I think that's, a really nice way of putting it and thinking about it, a nice positive spin on what could be a stressful situation if someone were to steal your idea there. Mark has asked about, given the suggestion here about putting in a card inside with a QR code so you can get feedback.
That would be brilliant, actually. We do have information, QR codes that kind of go to our website generally, but that's a really great suggestion, actually, especially for like this, even though we've released, today's our official launch, we've actually had some strong sales. And so we are looking at doing another print run. And so that's something that definitely I'll include in that next print run. That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
No worries.
More suggestions coming through: doctors, waiting rooms, cafes, talking to strangers, making friends. I think it's that's been a really great outcome of this discussion, is just thinking about different scenarios where this game can be so important for people and so meaningful. Hugh's mentioned about secondary environment. And Ryan has just popped in a question here, good timing. He said, I'm curious more about the experience from Molly and whether it might have influenced her thoughts on future career choices.
I definitely think that my career would be definitely something creative. I don't think it's gonna be like something that's not very creative and you don't really get to use your mind a lot, but I think that it's definitely changed like my perspective of what I'm gonna do in the future, Because like before I was gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna be a doctor, whatever, and then I was like, yeah, I don't really like the blood kind of side of things, but like then that kind of like creativity kind of thing was like kind of took a big part in that as well. So
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Ryan's just a future CEO, definitely within reach. I think you've loaded up the CV from the start, which is great. Um, Sania's thrown in here, how might we be able to promote and share your work, which is a great timing. I was about to pass that question over. Fiona, you've mentioned that today is the launch, which is exciting for this new game, and you mentioned that in your presentation too. How can people promote it? How can people purchase? How can people, come to you with scenarios for use, whether that be just, a more community-based, giving some sort of ideas and bouncing ideas, or is it where people want to come to you because they want to be the facilitator or they want to be trained in the game? What are the different avenues to reach you, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. So, and I'll pop this in the chat box, but yeah, I'd love to hear from you just, by email, which is also on our website. So you can also find me on LinkedIn, but on our website, it's youshapeus.com.au, and all of our contact details are down the bottom of that. I have samples that are digital print and play samples that I can send people so they can just get an idea of, kind of how it works. And also the U-shaped Whitlam one was a really interesting thing, because what we did was we used some of the existing cards and images, but then we embedded their pictures of their landmarks and their resources. So then what that meant was when people came to create their ideas in the afternoon, all of the resources were already there. So it just helps to bridge that gap between, like the idea and the idea kind of creation. And even though those are kind of really small, novel ideas that, didn't necessarily, they're not necessarily embedded in the sense they're not necessarily an ongoing thing, it still just gives kids that sense of like, their idea can become reality. And just like those small tasters, I just think are really important. But yeah, no, please reach out. In terms of, yes, we do need to build more of a facilitator resource for the second game. We've got quite a lot of resources there for the first game, but in terms of a video walkthrough, how to play, it's definitely didn't quite get to making that tonight, but thank you. Yeah, I'll give some more thought, but please reach out. And yeah, we could customize a game to your community program. That'd be awesome.
Fantastic. No, I think it's fine that you didn't get one small thing done when you've had so much on your plate. That run up to a launch is always a hectic one. So amazing that you could have that all ready to present to us tonight. So really appreciate all the work that you've both put into getting that ready. And you said you already had some promising sales from
Yeah.
the
Yes. So we're going to, we've ordered 100 and we've been to a couple of markets. We're actually going to the Sydney, the Secna Social Enterprise Festival this weekend in Sydney. So we'll be selling games there. But yeah, the main kind of way is through our website. It takes you to a secure website, Square website. And yeah, that's the best.
Amazing. Yes, that actually answers a question that Vivi asked around Social Enterprise Festival. So that's great to hear that you'll be there. We might be able to meet in person for the first time ever. I'll see you there. But thank you so much. This has been great. Please, everyone, I've put into the chat the Fiona's email address and the website. We'll also send that out to you in the follow-up email with the recording from this session. I think of yourself as the new advocates of You Shape Us and the new game, but You Shape Us more broadly as the organisation. I'm definitely speaking on behalf of Fiona and Molly here, but that ripple effect of word of mouth is huge. So if you can pass this on to someone else that is who would find this game and this program relevant, please do so. We want to see that everywhere. So yeah, so exciting. Thank you so much, Fiona and Molly. Any last sentiments or thoughts you want to get out before you wrap up?
No, just a huge thanks to everybody who's come along and commented and listened and made suggestions. Just really, yeah, any suggestions that you have about, we are absolutely learning this. My background, as you heard, is government and non-government, and sales is a very new area for me. So any insights you have around either the gaming industry or more generally, I'd love to, kind of hear. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Like I said, that follow-up email will come through in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out from us for that. Starts good. Also, I have to mention it while everyone's still online, we have our next webinar lined up as well if you're interested, and hearing how AI unlocks opportunity for business and impact. So a slightly different story, but impactful nonetheless. So thank you so much, and we'll see you hopefully at the next one or at a You Shape Us community event, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Sophie.
Thank you.
Thank you.